Hi again, Mark here from TalkingBass.net. Last week we had a look at how to play scales over 2 octaves. This week we're going to have a look at 2 octave arpeggios. In the scales lesson I demonstrated how you can take a standard 1 octave shape that you already know and just create a 2 octave pattern from it using a few position shifts. Now arpeggios are a little bit different in that we have to cover a lot more ground in a much shorter space of time, and ironically the less notes that we have in the arpeggio the tougher they can actually be. So like with the scales, I'm going to provide you with a single method for creating a 2 octave fingering, even though there are many different ways of doing it. This is so that you don't get confused and you can concentrate on one specific goal rather than having a bunch of tricky patterns to contend with. So let's start with a very basic C major triad. Now in 1 octave we have the notes C, E, G, and if we include the octave we get that shape up and down. Now as I've mentioned in many of the other lessons, we can also play that set of notes in 3 different ways. The pattern that we just played there with the starting on the 2nd finger there, so we have that pattern, but we can also play it starting on the 1st finger. So if we play it there, we've got the C, then we stretch up for the E on the E string, 12th fret, and then we have the G and the C there. We can also play it with the 4th finger. So we start there with the 4th finger, C, E, G, working down the neck there, and then the octave there on the G string. So that's 3 different ways to play the same set of 4 notes. For the 2 octave fingering, we're going to use the 1st finger pattern. Okay, so we're going to have the C there, 8th fret of the E string with the 1st finger. Then we're going to have the E there, 12th fret of the E string with the 4th finger. And then for the G and the C, we're going to use the 1st finger. So I'm just kind of barring it across there and shifting my weight of the finger from the G to the C. Okay, so that's the first phase of this. So we have C, E, G, C, G, E, C. So just practice that up and down. Okay. So now I'm in the perfect position to repeat that pattern again, just as we did with the 2 octave scales in the previous lesson. So if we move up onto that C there, we can now repeat that pattern. So we have, but we can only go up as far as the G in this position. So now we have C, E, G, C, E, G. Okay. Now when we get up to the G, we want to play that with the 1st finger again, because we're going to be making another position shift. So C, E, G, C at the 1st finger, C, E, G, and then 1st finger for the G. And 4th finger for the E there. Okay, so that's the next pattern to practice. So practice that up and down. Okay. So now all we need is the top C there. So if we work up the pattern, we've got a bit of a stretch to make. So if we look up here, we've got the C here, the 17th fret of the G string. So it's a little bit of a stretch, it's not too bad. And then we just come back down. Now obviously because we've got a 4th there between the G and the C, this isn't really a pattern based arpeggio. You can't really think of it in terms of a pattern like you would with little major 3rds here and little perfect 4ths there. You really have to look for the notes. Okay, so if you're not very good with your fingerboard familiarity, then you need to work on that. So I've got a bunch of lessons on that over at the YouTube channel and TalkingBass.net, so look for the notes on the fingerboard lessons. But needless to say, past the 12th fret, remember that it's a repeat of this lower area here. So if we know a C down here, 5th fret of the G string there, that's the 2nd marker there, we've just got this 2nd marker up here, okay, so that's the C. So if we work up again, stretch up for the C, and back down. Okay, so you'll need to practice that over and over. Okay? So now we've tried that C major arpeggio from a root note of C, we need to try different root notes, okay? Now, up here it's a little bit easier, that stretch isn't too bad. But if we move down here to a G, when we get up to the D, we've got a fairly big stretch there from the D to the G. If we tried it from an F, we've got the same problem. F, A, C, F, A, C. Then we've got from this C right up to this F here. So this perfect 4th is a fairly big jump. Now I've got a lesson devoted to these stretches and I do cover these arpeggios in that lesson. So take a look at that. But just as a little tip, you can pivot your hand using your thumb there to make these stretches. So instead of holding down the C there and then hitting that F and trying to keep the C held down and then, you know, make it to the F, I can just about make it, but it's not very comfortable. Instead, you need to put your thumb as far back as you can in the neck and make sure it's not directly below the first finger. You need it roughly in between the lowest note and the highest note that you're going to stretch, and then just pivot. So we use the thumb there to pivot, and I can just jump with the hand there, okay? So we have, okay, so a little pivot there to make the jump, okay? So now let's just try that arpeggio from a few other root notes, just for practice. So we'll try an A flat major arpeggio. A flat there, work up. As soon as we get up to there, we need to look for an A flat. We've got one here, 13th fret of the G string. Okay, let's try another one. Let's try a B. So we've got a B here. Okay, so every time I'm looking up here into this area and looking for the note, because I know a B, no B's there, so I know a B's there, okay? So that's the 2-octave major triad, but you can apply this system of a 4-string first finger starting repetition through all the other triads, the minor, the augmented and the diminished. So we'll quickly go through those. Now if you need any help with the construction of these chords, just visit my chord construction lessons on YouTube or TalkingBass.net. They're all part of the Music Theory for Bass series, so I'm not going to be going through the intervallic makeup of them for the sake of time. Also, if you need the sheet music or tablature for any of these exercises, all the lesson material is available as a downloadable PDF from TalkingBass.net. Just look underneath the video for that big download button, okay? So now let's try a C minor arpeggio. So this is going to be exactly the same as a C major, but we've got an E flat instead of an E. So we've got C, 8th fret of the E string there, and we'll just work up through the notes. C, E flat, 4th finger there, G, C, with the first finger just as before, putting us in perfect position to repeat that pattern. C, E flat, G, okay? But of course we'll need to play that G with the first finger, so that part. And then we play the top C there, and then we can come back down, okay? So all together. Okay, C minor. So now let's try the C augmented triad. So this is the same as the major triad, but with a sharpened fifth, the G sharp. So I'll just work up through the notes. C, E, as the major triad, but this time we're going to play the G sharp, and we're going to play that with the second finger, because that will put me in a nice position to play the octave C there with the first finger. So C, E, G sharp, then a repeat of that pattern. G sharp with the first finger, ready to play the C, okay? So that's all the way up. Okay, so up and down, the C augmented triad. Now we'll try the C diminished arpeggio. So this is the same as the C minor, but with the flattened fifth, the G flat. So again, we start C there, E flat, the G flat, I'm going to play with the second finger, and then jump across to take the octave with the first finger, and then repeat the pattern. C, E flat, G flat with the first finger this time, big stretch up that tritone there to get to the C, and then we just come down and repeat the fingering, okay? Okay, so you just have to get used to that first finger down to the second finger as you're coming down. Okay? So that's the triads starting on the E string. Now if you want to start them from the A string, then we can simply shift those first two notes of the original arpeggio up onto the A string. So for a C major, here we have the C and the E there on the E string. I just move them down onto the E string there, okay? So we have C, E, then jump up with the first finger to take the G and the C. Okay, so again, I'm just taking those first two notes, the root and the third, and then dropping them down, well, further down the neck, but onto the A string, okay? So with a minor triad again, C there, C, E flat, jump with the first finger. Okay, and you can apply that to all the different chords. These arpeggios, when played from that A string, are a little tougher to play, and they're not as common in isolation as the 4-string E string root note shapes. But they're worth learning as both a technical exercise and as a get out of jail free card when you're stuck in a position and you need to jump. So now let's have a look at some 7th chords. Now I'm not going to go through them all, I'm just going to show you the most common patterns to begin with, and then you can work through any of the others that you need using that same principle. Remember, if you need to know anything about the chord construction of 7th chords, then just go check out all those chord construction lessons over at YouTube or TalkingBass.net. So let's look at 4 7th chords. We're going to look at the major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, and the minor 7 flat 5 or half diminished. Now we're going to play them all from a root note here, 8th fret on the E string, the C. Each arpeggio is going to be in 2 sections, in 2 patterns for each, 1 pattern for each octave. The lower octave is going to be the 1st finger pattern over 2 strings, and for the upper octave we're going to use the standard 2 finger pattern over 3 strings, so that will make more sense when I go through it. So let's first check out the upper octave because it's going to be a little bit more familiar to you. So if we start up here at the C, the 15th fret, I'll just work through the arpeggios there. So we've got the C major 7, so here's the C, 15th fret, C, E, G, B, C, 1, 3, 5, 7. Okay, so that's that pattern. Now let's try the C dominant 7, so the C7, C, E, G, B flat, and the C up at the octave. Now the C minor 7, C, E flat, G, B flat, C. Okay, 1, flat 3, 5, flat 7. And now finally the minor 7 flat 5, so this is a C minor 7 flat 5 or C half diminished. C, E flat, G flat, B flat, and the C. 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. Okay? So make sure that you know the intervallic makeup of each of those arpeggios and have those patterns firmly planted in your mind. Now let's take a look at the lower octave. For this we're going to use a 1st finger pattern, so for the C major, C here at the 8th fret, we're going to have C, E, and then we're going to use G there with the 1st finger, and then we're going to move up to the B there, a major 3rd pattern between the G and the B, so the full arpeggio is on 2 strings, C, E, G, B, C and E on the E string, G and B on the A string. Okay, so we're not including the upper octave, so you want to practice that round and round. And that can be a really handy arpeggio to learn in itself. So that's a C major 7. Now let's try the C minor 7, C dominant 7, sorry. So we've got C, E, G, B flat there. So there's a minor 3rd now between the G and the B flat. So that's the C7. Now the C minor 7, C, E flat, G, B flat. And finally the C minor 7 flat 5. So we have C, E flat, G flat, and then the B flat. So we've got a minor 3rd between the C and the E flat, and then a major 3rd between the G flat and the B flat. Okay, so practice those 4 arpeggios round and round, and then we can move on to the next stage. So once you've learned all those arpeggios, the ones up here in the upper octave and the 2 stringers down on this lower octave, we just join them up, okay? So let's start with the C major 7, C, E, G, B in the lower octave, then we simply shift position to the 2nd finger there and work up that arpeggio. So we have C, E, G, B, C, E, G, B, and back down, okay? C major 7. Now let's work through those other arpeggios. So first of all we've got C7, C dominant 7 there, C, E, G, B flat, then shift up, and now back down. Now C minor 7, C, E flat, G, B flat, then up on the 2nd finger, and then back down. And finally the C minor 7 flat 5. So we have C, E flat, G flat, B flat, up to the 2nd finger, and back down. Okay? Once you've learnt these arpeggio patterns and got them under your fingers, you need to start looking at them from other root notes. So let's just try a few examples. So we'll try a G major 7. So G there. Or how about a B flat 7? So we've got the B flat there. Or how about an A minor 7? A there. Or how about a trickier one, we'll try an F minor 7 flat 5. So we've got the F there. Okay. As I said before, there are many different ways to play these 2-octave arpeggios, but just stick to these fingerings for now until you have them firmly under your fingers. Then you can start diversifying and looking to work other position shifts and transitions into your practice, because as I mentioned in the scales lesson, we're just moving from a lower position down here into a higher position up here at the octave. So remember to check out the lesson map at TalkingBass.net and subscribe to receive the free scale reference manual. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel by clicking the button on screen, and like this video if it's been helpful. I also give Skype lessons, so if you like the teaching style that I use and you'd like some personal one-on-one tuition, just get in touch and we can arrange a time slot. So just check out the Skype lessons tab at TalkingBass.net. Okay, see you later.